The discovery began with a simple question. Why do certain ancient structures display stonework that appears impossible with known historical tools? Not impossible in the sense of merely difficult. Impossible in the sense of physically contradicting what hardened granite should allow. Curves that flow like fabric frozen mid-motion. Joints so precise that modern laser cutting struggles to replicate them. Surface textures suggesting the stone was worked while soft, then hardened into its final form. The official explanation relies on patience and primitive tools. Copper chisels, sand abrasion, endless labor by unnamed thousands working across decades. A comfortable narrative that requires no further investigation. Except the mathematics don't work, the tool marks don't match, and the evidence keeps pointing towards something else entirely. Something that was deliberately removed from the historical record. The Cusco problems start with Cusco, Peru. The fortress walls of Sacsayhuam stones, weighing up to 200 tons fitted together with tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters. No mortar, no gaps. When Spanish conquistadors asked the Inca how these walls were built, the Inca themselves claimed they didn't know. They said the structures were already ancient when their civilization found them. They inherited the buildings but never claimed to have constructed them. If the Inca didn't build Sacsayhuam, who did, and how? The stones provide clues the textbooks ignore. Many blocks show vitrification, a glass-like quality suggesting intense heat or chemical alteration. Other sections show compression marks, as if the stone was pressed together while plastic, then solidified. Tool marks don't match expected patterns from copper or bronze chisels. They're too smooth, too three-dimensional in their curvature. As if the stone was shaped by something other than grinding and pounding. The stonework resembles casting or molding rather than carving. But granite doesn't cast. It is one of the hardest materials on Earth, unless someone knew how to make it soft again. The global pattern Cusco isn't isolated. Similar stonework appears worldwide, all displaying the same impossible characteristics. Egypt. The granite boxes in the Serapeum of Saqqara, weighing up to 100 tons each, carved from single blocks with internal corners, forming perfect right angles. Surfaces polished to mirror, finishes achieving tolerances modern machining considers exceptional. Egyptology claims copper tools and sand created these, but experimental archaeology has repeatedly failed to reproduce these tolerances. You cannot create a perfect internal right angle in granite by grinding. The physics don't allow it. Baalbek, Lebanon, the Trilithon, 3 blocks, each weighing 800 tons, fitted with the same precision seen in Cusco. Romans left detailed construction records, but never described how to move or shape stones of this magnitude. Beneath the Roman temple lie older megalithic foundations, predating Rome by unknown centuries. India. The Kailasa temple at Ellora. Allegedly carved from a single piece of bedrock, removing 400,000 tons of rock, using hand chisels. But where did the debris go? There is no corresponding debris field. The stone simply isn't there, as if it was dissolved rather than carved. The pattern repeats. Tiahuanaco, G. Febekli Tepe, Nan Madol. Across continents, across supposed cultures with no contact, identical engineering signatures, massive stones. Precision joints, surfaces suggesting plastic deformation rather than mechanical cutting, all officially explained by patience and primitive tools. All clustering when Tartaria appears on maps. All going silent after Tartaria's erasure. The softening evidence, the strongest evidence, doesn't come from the megaliths themselves. It comes from the reports that were suppressed. In the 1920s, British engineer and researcher Brian Fawcett documented accounts from South America describing a paste made from plant extracts that could temporarily soften stone. According to local traditions recorded in missionary journals, this paste was applied to rock surfaces, allowing them to be shaped by hand before the stone re-hardened naturally. Fawcett's notes mention a specific bird, found in certain regions of Peru, that built its nests by applying a secretion to cliff faces. The secretion would soften the rock just enough for the bird to excavate a cavity, which would then harden again, creating a permanent nest. Indigenous peoples allegedly observed this behavior and engineered the chemical process. These accounts were dismissed as folklore. No serious investigation followed. The paste, if it existed, was never chemically analyzed. The bird species, if it could be identified, was never studied. The entire line of inquiry was categorized as myth and filed away. But Fawcett wasn't the only one reporting such phenomena. In 1936, researchers in Bolivia documented similar accounts from indigenous sources describing a plant-based mixture that made stone workable. The formula was allegedly a closely guarded secret, passed down through specific families, and had nearly died out by the time researchers arrived to document it. One researcher, Colonel P.H. Fawcett, not related to Brian Fawcett, claimed to have witnessed a demonstration. In his account, a local applied what appeared to be a reddish paste to a granite boulder. Within minutes, the surface became soft enough to press a hand into, leaving clear impressions in what had been solid rock. The stone then gradually re-hardened over several hours. Colonel Fawcett collected samples of the paste and sent them to laboratories in Britain for analysis. The samples never arrived, allegedly lost in transit. No chemical breakdown was ever published. The demonstration, if it occurred, left no verified scientific record. The pattern of suppression appears too consistent for coincidence. In the 1950s, a Peruvian researcher named Daniel Russo investigated similar claims in the Marcahuasi Plateau. He documented stone formations that appeared to have been shaped while plastic, then solidified. Local traditions describe the stones as having been sung into shape or made soft by sacred knowledge. Russo's photographs show what appear to be compression marks and molding patterns inconsistent with carving. The stones display organic curves and integrated details that would require removing impossible amounts of material if created by subtraction. But if the stone was soft during formation, if it could be pressed and molded like clay, the features make perfect sense. Russo's work was marginalized by academic institutions. His research was categorized as speculative. The photographs exist, but the investigation stopped. The questions were never answered, because they were never officially asked. Why this pattern of suppression? Why do accounts of stone softening technology consistently appear in the historical record, only to be dismissed without serious investigation, unless the technology was real, and someone decided it needed to remain forgotten? The chemical possibility modern materials science provides a framework for understanding how stone softening might work. Not through magic, but through chemistry. Granite is composed of quartz, feldspar, and mica, held together by crystalline bonds. But these bonds can be disrupted by specific chemical agents without destroying the material. Certain organic acids, particularly those found in plants, can create chelation effects that temporarily weaken crystalline structures. Oxalic acid, found in rhubarb and wood sorrel, can form complexes with minerals. ETA can disrupt metal-mineral bonds. Certain enzymes can break down silicate structures. What if ancient civilizations developed organic compounds that could temporarily plasticize stone? Not by brute dissolution, but by targeting specific molecular bonds, creating workability before natural re-hardening. Modern research into biomineralization reveals chemical processes that control mineral formation with extraordinary precision. Certain bacteria precipitate calcium carbonate. Some fungi weather rock through organic acid secretion. Nature possesses the chemical toolkit for manipulating stone at molecular levels. Ancient cultures had millennia to observe and experiment. If they identified the right combination of plant extracts, minerals, and biological agents, they could have developed a paste that temporarily altered granite's molecular structure. Apply the paste, work the stone while plastic. let it re-hardened naturally. The chemical agents would degrade over time, leaving only the impossibly precise stonework as evidence. This explains why tool marks don't match expectations. The stones weren't carved, they were molded. The paste did the cutting chemically. It explains the precision joints. Soft stones pressed together achieve molecular level contact before hardening, creating seams measured in microns. It explains the organic curves and compression marks. Features impossible through carving become simple when the medium is temporarily plastic. The Tartarian connection, the megaliths cluster geographically in regions that 1700s maps label as Tartarian territory Peru, Bolivia, the Andes. These appear on historical maps with notations suggesting Tartarian presence extending into South America long before conventional European contact. The timeline matches. The most sophisticated megalithic construction corresponds to Tartaria's documented existence. After Tartaria's erasure from maps, after the mudflood events, after the civilizational reset, the megalithic construction stops completely. The architectural similarities between Tartarian buildings and ancient megalithic sites suggest common technological foundations. Both demonstrate precision exceeding what their supposed tools should allow. Both were inherited by later civilizations who claimed them but couldn't replicate them. What if Tartaria possessed the stone softening technology? What if their civilization spanned continents through technological superiority in construction? What if the megaliths are remnants of a Tartarian building program, using methods we've been taught to consider impossible? The organizational requirements support this. Moving 800-ton stones requires logistics planning, infrastructure, continental scale coordination. Tartaria, as it appears on old maps, possessed exactly this: documented cities, trade routes, governmental structures capable of coordinating massive building projects. Then it vanished, erased from maps, removed from encyclopedias, written out of history. And with it went the construction methods, the stone softening paste, the chemical knowledge that made the impossible routine. The megaliths remained because stone doesn't forget. But the builders were forgotten, deliberately, systematically, globally. The suppression pattern, the evidence has been suppressed through consistent patterns across decades and continents. First accounts are collected. Missionaries, explorers, researchers document local traditions describing stone softening methods. The information enters the academic record. Then dismissal. The accounts become folklore, primitive mythology, misunderstood metaphors. No serious investigation follows. No chemical analysis. No verification attempts. Samples are lost. Faucets paste specimens never arrive at laboratories. Photographs disappear from archives. Researchers find their work marginalized, funding cut, findings unpublished. The pattern isn't active conspiracy. It is passive gatekeeping. Institutional structures deciding certain questions aren't worth asking. Certain evidence isn't worth examining. When Professor Davidovits proposed geopolymer theory in the 1970s, suggesting ancient stones were cast using early concrete, like mixtures, the archaeological establishment dismissed it immediately. Not through rebuttal or counter-evidence, but categorical rejection. The idea contradicted accepted chronology, therefore couldn't be true. Decades later, chemical analysis revealed compositions consistent with casting rather than natural formation. Davidovits gained traction, but only after years of professional marginalization. The same applies to stone softening. Evidence exists. Accounts accumulate. Chemical possibility is scientifically plausible. But investigation never happens because the conclusion requires rewriting accepted history. These are conclusions institutions cannot accept, so evidence is filed away. Questions remain unasked, and megaliths stand as silent witnesses to technology we're not supposed to remember. What was lost if the stone softening technology was real and suppressed? What else was lost? The paste represents only one application of deeper chemical knowledge. A civilization capable of plasticizing granite would understand molecular structures, chemical interactions, material properties at levels officially not achieved until modern chemistry. They would have possessed sophisticated botany, identifying plants with necessary chemical properties, extraction processes, concentration methods, mixture ratios, the relationship between chemical composition and material transformation. This knowledge would extend beyond stonework. If you can soften granite, you can manipulate other materials with equal sophistication. Metals, ceramics, organic compounds, the entire material science toolkit modern civilization, developed slowly, might have existed in different forms, achieving similar or superior results. Tartarian buildings demonstrate metallurgical sophistication, precise glass work, advanced ceramics, material applications that seem anachronistic. The previous investigations documented atmospheric electricity harvesting, harmonic resonance architecture, free energy systems. If those civilizations could manipulate fundamental material properties through chemistry, they could harness environmental energy through methods we no longer understand. The mud flood, the reset, the collapse, all could have been designed to destroy this knowledge. Not just the people, but physical evidence of its existence. Bury the cities, scatter the populations, burn the libraries, and wait for memory to fade. Within generations, the impossible becomes mythology. The technology becomes magic, and the next civilization builds on ruins without understanding what came before. The modern cover-up the suppression continues today, refined and institutionalized. Modern archaeologists encounter the same megalithic precision, the same impossible stonework, and they've developed sophisticated methods for avoiding the implications. The preferred explanation, time and labor. Give primitive people enough centuries and manpower, and they can accomplish anything. No technological sophistication, no lost knowledge, no uncomfortable questions. But the mathematics don't support it. Moving 800-ton stones with copper tools and rope requires force calculations exceeding what human labor can provide. Achieving micron-level precision with sand requires time periods that don't fit the evidence. The conventional explanations demand miracles of effort, while denying miracles of technology. When researchers propose alternatives, they encounter institutional resistance, not through debate, but marginalization. Papers aren't published. Findings aren't included in textbooks. Ideas are treated as fringe speculation regardless of evidence. This creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Students learn the conventional narrative. They become professors teaching that narrative. Anyone questioning it finds themselves outside the structure. Unable to access funding. Unable to publish. The gatekeeping isn't centralized. It is the natural tendency of institutions to preserve foundational narratives. To admit stone softening existed would require rewriting textbooks, redesigning curricula, acknowledging generations of scholars built careers on incomplete assumptions. But the megaliths remain. The stones don't lie. And eventually, the weight of evidence becomes too great for comfortable narratives to support. What this means, if stone softening technology existed and was suppressed rather than mythological, the implications cascade through everything we think we know. It means ancient civilizations possessed chemical knowledge we've only recently rediscovered, that they understood material science at molecular levels, that they developed sophisticated technologies using organic methods we've dismissed as primitive. It means the timeline is wrong. The neat progression from stone tools to bronze to iron to modern technology collapses. Advancement wasn't linear. Knowledge was lost. We're not climbing toward unprecedented heights. We're recovering capabilities that existed before and were deliberately destroyed. It means Tartaria wasn't a geographic label. It was a civilization with continental reach, technological sophistication, and organizational capacity, exceeding what we attribute to ancient cultures. The megaliths are their legacy. The suppression of stone, softening knowledge is part of the larger erasure of Tartarian history. The stone, softening paste, if it existed, represents everything we've been taught to forget. That our ancestors were more capable than we imagine. That we've inherited a world we don't fully understand. That the impossible buildings surrounding us are evidence of knowledge we lost and now deny ever existed. The evidence persists. The accounts accumulate. The megaliths stand unchanged, waiting for questions the establishment refuses to ask. What was the paste? How was it made? Where did the knowledge come from? And why, after centuries of use, did it suddenly vanish? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're evidence gaps demanding investigation. But investigation requires admitting we don't have answers. That the timeline might be incomplete. That stone, soft, as cloth, might not be mythology but suppressed reality. The choice is simple. Accept the comfortable narrative requiring impossible coincidences and miraculous primitive effort, or examine evidence pointing toward lost technology, suppressed knowledge, and civilizations we've been taught to forget. The stones are still there, the accounts are documented, the chemical possibility is valid. Everything needed for investigation exists except the institutional will to pursue it. The stone, softening paste, might have been real. And if it was, what else are we not being told? What other capabilities did ancient civilizations possess that we've been taught never existed? The megaliths remember, even if we've chosen to forget, and the evidence waits, buried under centuries of institutional dismissal, for someone willing to ask the questions everyone else has agreed not to ask.